It was holiday time on the island of Sodor. All the engines were working hard and happily, except for James. Why should a splendid engine like me take special messy coal trucks instead of coaches? Percy or Oliver should do it. They're not as important as I am. Thomas was cross. Pah! Snorted James. Being important is the only thing for me to think about. And he puffed away in a cloud of steam. Said Percy to Oliver. Replied Oliver. Added Percy. Then they puffed away. Meanwhile, James was collecting quarry trucks from the yards. Dustier and dustier, he grumbled. Then he saw Mrs. Kindly. She looks miserable, asked James's driver. The Fat Controller soon heard the sad news. A few minutes later, there was a surprise for Mrs. Kindly. Go old Harold. Harold's made my red paint dustier than ever, muttered James. But he was happy for Mrs. Kindly. Soon she was flying high in Harold. She said. Meanwhile, Percy and Oliver had arrived at the docks. Cranky the Crane was unloading an old tramp steamer. Percy exclaimed. It is indeed, whistled James. The Fat Controller has ordered me to stop pulling coal trucks and go to the station instead. Something to do with Mrs. Kindly. Goodbye, gasped James. Mrs. Kindly was waiting for James with the Fat Controller. James took Mrs. Kindly along her favorite coastal route to Tidmouth Bay. When he arrived there, it was dark. A big surprise awaited Mrs. Kindly. She cried. Best of all, the Fat Controller invited her to make the announcement. The sign stalls lit up, and Mrs. Kindly had the first ride on the carousel. You are quite right, Thomas, James whispered. Making someone happy does cheer you up. Then together they watched the fun of the fair.